Welcome to this video. We are continuing on our series of 0 to 60 in Microsoft 365. In this video, I want to touch on a few areas within Entra. Entra is the identity access management platform for Microsoft. That is the IAM for short. I like that. IAM, it's about identity. I'm sure someone thought that up. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. Defensive insights within a compressed format. So straight away, you're going to see I am in Entra and I'm looking at my unprivileged user, just my normal user account. And the way in which I got there was to go to users, all users, and then click on the user. Now, worth knowing, under properties here, and I'm just jumping straight in, you'll see that there are a lot of fields in which you can fill out. Now, if you watched the previous video about admin portal, you'll know that I mentioned that admin portal and any other subsequent admin portals are context driven, meaning that the admin portal is not going to have everything, but the other admin portal for Entra for IAM is going to have everything that you need for that context. So if that was too wordy, admin centers for one thing, Entra's for another, Intune's for another, and so on and so forth. And Entra is your identity. So because of that, we get a lot more options here. So within our properties tab, you have the option of filling out job information per user, as well as contact information, and you can even have your on-prem areas here. Now, this is handy in the case that you want to have your managers allocated for the team lead, let's say, and then you can have a SharePoint site that shows an organizational structure and it builds it out from this manager relationship. Additionally, you can find some really handy points in building out these fields and then having your dynamic group rules based on these things. So you could have, if a user is from this company and has this job title, then give them access to XYZ group. Likewise, you could do it off the manager. So if you had a software development team and you had Bruce who was heading that up, you could say users internally with the dynamic rule that they have the manager Bruce, put them into this group. Now on the left pane, you can see here we have a few options. So if we want to audit and gather logs against a user or identity to see what has changed under that identity, we can click it here and under audit, or the sign-in logs, saying we're investigating if that identity has been signed into remotely or outside of normal business hours. We can see them all there. You have a few other options here, but I'm going to jump ahead and talk about assigned roles. So assigned roles won't be available to everyone. I believe you need a P2 license for it. But if you're looking to have privileged identity management, so sort of your just-in-time escalation of privilege, this is where you go to assign those roles. So you can add an assignment that's eligible for a user, and they can request that access, and that flow can be processed to give them that access for just-in-time. And I haven't gone into it a lot. Maybe we'll make a video to it. Write down in the comments if you'd like to know about it. But the area in which you can set that up is under identity governance in privileged identity management. So you have it here. But this is where you can add the assignments under the user. Then if we continue on, you can see that there's options to look at their groups, application, license, devices, and authentication methods, and a few other options here. Authentication methods are really cool. This will show you the auth that I have against this user, which I probably won't share in this video given the sensitive nature of it, but you can go and say you have a user that says, look, I can't get in, my auth isn't working. You can go there and you can have a look at what they have, as well as add authentication methods, but you can also request that they renew or reset their authentication method via that means. But you can also, at the overview, reset a password or revoke sessions and do some of those top of mind things here. Now, another area worth looking at is under users, you have this user settings. User settings gives you the overarching global settings for users. And this is really key if you want to lock down your tenant and you want to make sure that is secure by design, zero trust, and we're implementing those sort of principles. So I'm going to go through some of these and show you what's implemented in this tenant, and it might help you to think about whether or not that's implemented in your tenant. So default user role permissions, users can register applications. In this case, we've set that to no because that's zero trust and least privilege. So we don't want our users to register applications. We want our admins to do that and then gain access for our users. Then restrict non-admin users from creating tenants. Yes, of course, we don't want them to be able to create tenants. Then users can create security groups. No, we want our admins with the right privileges to be able to do that. Under here, we have guest user access restrictions. So guest users, think of anyone external to the organization. So guest users have access to this, have the same access as members, most inclusive, or guest users have limited access to properties and memberships of directory objects, or guest user access is restricted to properties and membership of their own directory objects, most restrictive. So in the principle of least privilege, we are applying that here, saying, look, we want our guest users to only have access to the properties and memberships of their own directory objects that have been assigned to them by admins. And underneath that, we've got more options. So restrict access to Microsoft Entra Admin Center. Yes, we want to do that. Next, do we want LinkedIn account connections? No. Now this is based off a CIS control to choose no here, but that's something that you can play with in your organization and see if you need it or don't need it. I think it's more of a nice to have rather than a required. So with least privilege and with zero trust, we turn that off. Next is show keep user signed in. No, we don't want to do that. And then you've got these two links here. So external users and user features. So we're going to talk about external users, and this is really key to locking down your tenant for external users and making sure that if you do have a client in which you want to connect with, that you're looking at the rules here. This is what's going to affect it directly. So we click there and then we get punched out to a few more options. So guest user access restrictions. So this is what we were looking at before about most restrictive to properties and memberships of their own directory. Next is invite settings. So do we want anyone in the organization to be able to invite guest users, including guests and non-admins? Well, that's not going to be good because that's not least privilege, so that's turned off. Member users and users assigned to specific admin roles can invite guests, including guests with member permissions. Well, we won't do that for now. Only users assigned to specific admin roles can invite guest users. Now, this is what I would opt for personally and recommend in a corporate setting, and you would have your security group assigned for the people that you want to have that permission. But in this tenant, I have set that to no one in the organization can invite guest users, and that's only because there are no guest users to this tenant. And since it's zero trust least privilege, well, this tenant will never have any guest users, so we may as well just remove that control. Then next, you want to enable self-service sign-up via user flows for guests. So that's set as no, and we'll just read this out. Yes means that you can enable self-service sign-up for guests via user flows associated with applications in your directory. No means that applications cannot be enabled for self-service sign-up by guests and require them to be invited to your directory. So again, we want to do least privilege. We want to have admin giving consent as opposed to it being user driven. Next is external user leave settings. Allow external users to remove themselves from your organization. That's always worth turning on yes. You don't want to completely remove the controls in which a person has over their autonomy within your tenant, even if they are external users. So that's set to yes, although they're blocked completely. So there's no need, but in your tenant, that would be worthwhile looking at. Next is collaboration restrictions. So cross-tenant access settings are also evaluated when sending invitation to determine whether the invite should be allowed or blocked. And we are allowing invitations only to the specified domains. So this is the area in which if you wanted to have restrictions around what domains are allowed to communicate and collaborate with your tenant, you would add them expressly here. And then if you wanted to share things through SharePoint or Teams, there's also a place within those platforms to add the domains and to collaborate with them as well. So bear in mind to make sure to do that. All right, now if we jump back one to the user settings, we know that we've looked at external collaboration settings, but there's these user features. So manage user feature settings. If we click on that, we can see two other options. Do we want to allow our users to preview features for my apps? No, least privilege, we won't do that. And administrators can access my stuff. Now I'm not using my stuff in this tenant. I probably won't go over it, but if you are using my stuff, you may want to change that control there. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, and this is an area that when you're onboarding a client, say that has a legacy tenant, or you have used a tenant for quite a while, you need to go and look under all users and then look under password reset. And there's two things you need to check here. Check that your self-service password reset is enabled. This will save you a lot of overhead as an admin. So self-service password reset is the ability to allow your users to have self-service when wanting to reset their password. Rather than having to get an admin to come and do it, you can say, yep, I'm going to apply it to all, and they can go ahead and get to a portal, go reset password, and go through the prompts and do it themselves. So this is something that Microsoft actually recommends to turn on, and there's good sense in doing that. Next is authentication methods. Now, this is an area to really check, and be sure to check this. This is the legacy authentication method. This is the setup that was initially set up to roll out your Auth or your MFA or your 2FA to your users. Now this has been depreciated for a new type that comes under essentially conditional access. And you want to check, is this on or not? The way to check whether it's is turned on or not is actually to go down to your protection area and go to authentication methods and make sure that this migration status is set to complete. If it's not, it'll have an option here to go through the wizard to convert it and take you through that migration. Now, I recommend it, and Microsoft recommends it as well. And I would say take it because it's going to be a small change that really doesn't make a lot of interruption to the end user. You're just converting them to a new way to manage their authentication methods through conditional access, which is going to be better long-term than the legacy system. And from here, you can actually turn on and enable which type of methods you want to allow to which target users or groups. So best practice is to depreciate old ones like your email, voice call, and SMS, things that are insecure by nature. Microsoft will talk about it through the wizard of what is a, lower or higher risk authentication method versus a better, higher strength, lower risk authentication method. So the best being your FIDO and Microsoft Authenticator. Those are the ones you want to be pushing for your clients. So that's a bit of a short video, but I think those are the key points in which you should look for when administering your IAM and jumping into Entra. Even if it's your tenant, a tenant that you're administering, or a client's tenant, go and check those areas. Make sure that they're filled out properly. Go check your self-service password reset. Check the authentication method that it's been taken to the new version, legacy has been depreciated, and go and check the properties of users to make sure that the relevant information is filled out, especially managers, so that you can have the right relationships in place. So this is a short video. We'll go over some more in another video, and please be sure to leave a comment. Let me know what you'd like to know more about, what you thought was good, what you thought was bad. Any feedback is good. Thanks so much for watching.